Good morning, everybody. I've had a chance today to get the grades wrapped up for the Module 5 journal, and I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about it. This was tougher for a lot of you than the previous ones were, and I understand why. Things are kind of changing in regards to what we're doing with Penelope, and the ask in this assignment was heavier. So if you didn't get the grade that you hoped, take a look at the feedback that I've offered. Normally, I'll allow one resubmission per term as long as a kind of like an honest take was given at getting the grade right the first time. So if you don't like the grade, you want to take a look at the feedback, do another chance at this one, let me know, and we can talk about that one-on-one and see what's best for you. Okay, because I mentioned one resubmission, I always want to make the note that I don't accept those in the final project. So just keep that in mind. Okay, but usually once a term, if you just missed, and a couple of you guys just missed on this one, then I'm happy to take a look at a resubmission. Now, what was more particularly challenging here? First off, I want to take a moment to chat about the family dynamic. We talked about this a little bit, and I've given some of you feedback on this. I'm not going to take points off if you guys really feel strongly that family counseling is the way to go for this client based on what we have in the case study. That's a legitimate choice. I can see where that comes from. Me, clinically, I'm keeping her as far away from that family as possible for a while. For one primary reason that's disclosed in the second part of the treatment, excuse me, of the case study, and that is that Penelope is very clear that her mother blames her for her father's drinking. So, how is this family going to be a support for Penelope if we have to try to help her get and stay sober while addressing the family dynamic of minimization, rationalization of the father's drinking? And we've already gotten to the point where it's so volatile they've thrown her out of the house. That's a lot to ask. And we got to remember, too, that the family hasn't come to anyone for treatment, just the client. Right, just Penelope. She's the only one so far who has said, I need help and I want help. With that being the case, I'm just not convinced that this family is in a position that they're ready to be a support for this client. Now, say we do go to family therapy, and a lot of you wrote that you really want her in family therapy because she doesn't have anywhere to live. We want to be able to get her back home with mom and dad. Well, say that's the case. Say that we do say we want you to go to family therapy, so at least you have a place to stay. What that really does is it devalues her role and her ability to come to the table as an equal partner in family therapy, because essentially she has to now do whatever mom and dad say in order to maintain her housing, which already puts a currently conflicted relationship in a greater state of conflict. And I think it's very likely that she'll continue to use to kind of self-medicate to deal with the stressor of being that in that environment. Okay, so what do we do alternatively? Now, if it's me, I'm looking at a couple of things here. So Penelope's really reluctant to engage in a lot of the treatment options that we've offered. So how do we help motivate her? And I think we can kind of kill two birds with one stone. And some of you picked up on this. So right now she hasn't been happy in the treatment options she's been offered, but we know she doesn't have a place to stay. So what if we were able to say, hey, Penelope, let's look at getting you into sober living. That way you have a place to stay and you can kind of continue to work on this treatment while you're in the sober living house. And that might build enough alignment with her and engagement with her that she's willing to go into sober living to kind of have that stability, that place to stay, and continue treatment. The other option is she said that she wants to resume her studies. Well, maybe we can help her get back into school and she can live on campus. That can present some of its own challenges because she wasn't involved in that college binge drinking environment. But I still think that if we can use that to align with her long-term educational goals that she's disclosed of wanting to be a psychologist, then we can use that as a meaningful way to say, hey, this is going to help you engage in your long-term goals, and it's going to give you a place to stay in the short term without having to put her back into that really dysfunctional family environment. Okay. A couple other notes that came up. Um, some of you were on the fence as to whether there were any other referrals that should be sent out for other evaluations. And in my reading of this, there are two. There's two places we want to send her. One is she's continuing to talk about these migraines, so let's get her to a doctor. Some of you were specific and said a neurologist. Let's get her to a doctor, right? So we want to start with medical evaluation. If she's being honest and she is self-medicating for these migraines, and it's not simply that she's addicted and is continuing to use substances and using the migraines as a rationalization, then we want to be able to get better treatment for the migraines, and at least we want to rule that out And we want to say that this isn't the driver for her using these substances. Okay. Secondly, we definitely want to get her a mental health eval, 100%. And a lot of you picked up on co-occurring and comorbid disorders, which you're absolutely right about. I think that there's a lot to show us here that suggests that she may be dealing with at least depression and anxiety, perhaps some other stuff, perhaps some trauma history. But what we do know, and this is why I almost always look at sending someone over for mental health eval one way or another, especially if they've had a disruption such as the being kicked out of the house, is there's a diagnosis called an adjustment disorder, in which it's essentially symptomatically similar to a generalized anxiety disorder, but it's surrounding one major life change. So for kids, we sometimes see this with a move, with the loss of a family member, but with adults and young adults, something as traumatic as being thrown out of the family home almost certainly is going to qualify her for treatment under an adjustment disorder, and that's a really good pipeline for us to get her into mental health counseling at this stage. Okay. Um, and then lastly, when we talk about case management, and this was a real pain point for a lot of you in this one, we talk about case management. Go back and look at case management under the SAMHSA resources, because they're going to tell you a lot about where to go here. But what we want to remember here is that we are the case manager for the whole client, not just related to the substance abuse piece. So when we're talking about her housing challenges, when we're talking about her job challenges, we're talking about her educational challenges, we want to go back to kind of our HSE 101 background and look at Maslow here, right? Can the client work on her substance abuse treatment and potential mental health concerns while she doesn't know where she's going to live and what she's going to eat? And the answer is no. So if the sober living doesn't work out, if the college referral to get her back into the dorms doesn't work out, then we can always get her in touch with housing resources in the community. She's probably going to qualify for food stamps in the community. She's probably going to qualify for Medicaid at this point. Okay, so we want to make sure that we are case managing the whole client and that we're not getting kind of myopic based on her substance abuse, because we're not going to be able to work on those higher level concerns unless we get the baseline covered. And if she continues to abuse substances as kind of an escape and rationalization to get away from some of the challenges that she's dealing with, we can really start to see those situations in regards to housing and providing for basic needs snowball to a point where she could be on the streets. We want to avoid that at all costs, right? Much harder to come back from that kind of environment. Otherwise, lots of great notes. There's really was no one who I didn't have some great stuff in there. Specifically, those of you who struggled with the pieces on case management and referrals and additional resources, take a look at my feedback. Let me know if you have any questions, and then let me know if you'd like to work on a resubmission. Okay. Hope everyone's having a great day. You can always reach me at s.matthews@snh2.edu.